Okay, let's see what we can do here as far as dark color mastery. Okay, now this is something that I used to have people in my Stampscaping, I think it was called 102 class, it was either that or 201, but basically it was the second class that I used to teach in a day after I taught the beginning class, which kind of went into composition and color building, okay? The first thing that we would do when we got back from our break, which was usually a lunch break or something like that, would just be to do a monochromatic piece just using black ink. And this would do a couple different things. It would show people, just what monochromatic types of visuals can look like. A lot of people liked them even better than the color that they were doing. There's a different type of quality to them. It's kind of a little bit more dream-like, in a sense. And I don't know, there's just a kind of a different quality. It's just like looking at a black and white movie or something like that, or black and white photography as opposed to color photography. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think you can enjoy both, okay? But working this type of exercise here is a really good exercise for you, even if you do like color, because this will really enhance your color technique, okay? Now I'm just going to stamp out the composition using a bunch of stamps from Nature Set number 1, just because I happen to have that one out right now. And we'll just keep it really basic, okay? Alright, now here's the thing. It would probably be a little bit easier if I added in all these other elements right here so you can kind of see the direction we're going, but it would probably be an even better idea just to leave my foreground imagery for after I do the toning in this, and just to stamp these over it because it will be a little bit more crisp that way, okay? I'm going to be doing a lot of blending over the top of the imagery. But just to show you kind of the give you the idea of what the visuals are going to look like in the end result composition. Let's just stamp them right now, okay? All right, now I'm doing this on a quarter-sized glossy cardstock, but what we'll do as well is I'll do another scene just on the back side of this in matte, okay? It's only coated on one side, so we'll show it to you in both. And maybe let's do it in a different color scheme too, okay? Alright, now I'm just doing this in my black dye-based inks, okay? And this is a Marvy dye-based ink. You can use whatever ink you have. A lot of the other inks are a little bit well, not juicier, but they're thicker inks than the Marvys, okay? So the Marvys tend to set up pretty quickly because they're being absorbed into the paper, just because they're thinner in viscosity, okay? So you might get a lot of little blurring or whatnot, but I don't want you to worry about that, though, in this exercise. This is an exercise to give you kind of a good control over your darker tones, okay? So even if we're going with sunset colors or something like that, yellows, oranges, reds, browns, whatever, those darkest colors that you'd be adding into that color scheme, if you have control over those darker tones, you have a lot more control over your lighting in a scene, okay? So this is for scenic lighting. It's just not to say, oh, look what we can do with, kind of a monochrome look, and look at what the results of that are, okay? This is an exercise, and I want you to approach it like an exercise. I don't want, we don't want to get into, oh my gosh, I smeared that tree right there. You know what I mean? We'll, save our, our ladder compositions for the Museum of Modern Art or something like this. But this one right here, I just want you to take as an exercise, okay? And I'll show you what I'm going for. All right, now, a lot of times I say just to go with a lighter tone of ink and get a good saturation of it, but on this one right here, we're going to just try to achieve a nice kind of range of values just using our dark tone, okay? I'll do this one in black because I stamped it out in black, but we'll do it again on the other side using a different color because it can be done in any color, okay? Alright, so I'm using the Marvy Stylus Tool. You can use any kind of sponge things or something like that, applicators. You can use a paper towel. Maybe I'll use a little bit of both on this one just so you can see that you don't need kind of some specialized tool for this, okay? But let's talk about kind of the basics here in terms of the concept, okay? We're always starting from the outside edge and working our way in this process right here. We want things to kind of be kind of darker on the perimeter and lighter on the inside somewhere. That darker perimeter is going to provide us a nice vignette, okay? Now this is going to be a little bit rough because I am just going with only dark, so if we're going with things like sponge tips or something like that, chances are we're going to get that sponge tip look, okay? But we're going to just keep working our areas. And I'm going with a very light touch right here, okay? And I'm just kind of pulling that color in like this, okay? Now this is where the kind of the touch comes into play, and getting a good feel of that application, okay? Now see, the more I go, the smoother that transition looks right there. You see that? The first couple strokes looked horrible, right? Because we saw the, the tip right here. But this just comes to show you just kind of how you can stay in a given area. It's much easier if I'm doing this technique over the top of, some other saturated tones that have been already applied, because the paper isn't going to be so dry. But this is, I'm just doing this as kind of a to emphasize the point of staying in an area and utilizing the wet, the freshly, applied ink on here, and using it all the way to kind of a drier application. Okay, so I'm kind of doing this on the edge too, like this, right? Can you kind of hear that right there? I can't really boost my volume of it all, but I don't know, maybe you can kind of hear that a little bit. Okay, so see this, how I'm just kind of staying in a given area. It's a little bit easier when you're doing it over the tops of imagery, because you don't have to be so smooth with it. Okay, this is the sponge now. Do you see where this is kind of going? It's not a great application, but I can just keep staying here on this one little streak. What I'm doing is I'm going like this. And see how dry that is right there in light? I just keep doing that in a given area. Okay? And that's where kind of getting the feel of this is giving you a lot of control, okay? If you can master this, you can kind of master all of your colors when you start going into your color schemes and when you get into those darkest tones. Usually people have a lot of control over their lightest of colors because it doesn't have that much contrast between, that given value of whatever color you're using and the background, which is white, okay? But when you're going with black here, that's as dark as you can get potentially, but I'm not working it with black. I'm working with the kind of my grays right here. And as I keep kind of adding that down like this, it kind of starts blending in out. See how I can really see the the shape of this applicator right there right now, right? But you just kind of stay with it and you kind of work it, okay? And that's where your control comes over. And then I'm also using the drier tone, drier brush, so that my applications are very, very light every time I make a pass. So it's not like a Chinese brush calligraphy or something like that, where it's this really saturated tone and you're just doing these, gestural marks and it is what it is. This is just a very light mark. Watch this. I'm going to ink this up and I'm just going very lightly like this. See that? I mean, if you go like that, then you're going to get a mark or something like that. If you go too heavy-handed or like this, that's set. But okay. Imagine I always say this, it's like putting like makeup on like I don't know, let's say your 3-year-old is going out trick-or-treating or something like that, and you have some cold pack cream or something like that you're going to apply to their face. I don't know, maybe more of a dabbing motion or something like that, but I don't know, you just want to go very soft, okay? But I mean, it doesn't take that long. I mean, I'm working with a lighter tone, but look at this. That area is pretty much done. And, it just takes a few strokes like that. See? So I'm just staying in that one area. People want to do this, though, okay? and then they get, you know, a bunch of isolated tappings like that, and they wonder, hey, I'm getting my shape of the applicator everywhere. And that's understandable, you know, because the darker could be kind of more, you know, the outside area could be more, you know, it's darker, so they have a tendency of wanting to do it like that and not kind of utilizing the wet to dry style of application, okay? See that right there? And this background can be kind of irregular. That makes it looks kind of like more of a kind of a natural sky. If it looks rough in an area, just stay there and go with a very light touch, okay? So I'm barely touching it, you know, I'm just kind of pressing down a little bit. I'm not squeezing it all the way down. And I'm just kind of taking it across. You can really barely tell what kind of application I'm putting down with one stroke, okay? It's like this. It's like a 5% gray or something like that, and watch the end of it right over here. It's barely visible, right? But cumulatively, when you do that, you know, you get that kind of stronger streak. And look at that sky right there. Isn't that really dramatic? And I'm doing that in black. I mean, if you were doing that in blues or something like that, it wouldn't be so contrasty. All right, now doing this down in the water too. I mean, now this is a lot easier. I have a ton of open area in here. That's a lot more area to fill in. I would put in something like water texture, and you can put some clouds up there, you know, stamp clouds. And you don't have to do so much of this filling in with this type of tone like this, but this is just an exercise though, remember. So you can stamp out any kind of composition you want too, okay? I'm just kind of doing this with a little bit more of an open design, which is, you know, these early stamps of mine from A Stamp in the Hand in like sets number 1 through 4. Okay, now see where this shadow is down here and these reflections in the water. And on the side of the stream, this is called Country Stream, there are some dots down there. And then what I have done is I've just reiterated that with a little bit more shadow. So I'm kind of hitting it like this, again with like that, you know, 2-3% gray at any given time. But if I go over there 10 times, it might look like more like a, you know, 20% gray or 30% gray or something like that. Okay, so see this right here? But then on the top of that area, there's not as many dots, right? So I just leave it light, but doesn't that look kind of more round? Now see, I haven't done it down here, but doesn't that look more rounded to you? And it's a simple process. It's just controlling your light, okay? Now if you're doing this for the first time, you know, don't worry, don't sweat it. It might look pretty rough, but what you're doing is you're doing your exercises, okay? You're not going to learn how to, you know, do perfect scales and piano right off the bat. But you could, you know. I mean, when I did this in class, a lot of people's, you know, scenes looked fantastic. It looks kind of out of place, though, when you first start doing it only in one area. You have to bring that texture all the way around for it to kind of come together. Okay, so adding a little texture down here. Oh yeah, so let me try like a paper towel doing this type of application. Dude, the paper towels are really great in terms of adding some tone. I've found, I don't know, it was kind of a long lost application tool. Something we still use a lot before anything, really, before any kind of accessories were available in stamping. But I've been using it a lot with the Moonlight Duo pads, and I have done some other glossy cardstock with the paper towel. But anyways, you see that right there? Isn't this kind of looking a little bit more round now? You see where it is? The shadow is on the bottom of that, but not on the top. This looks a little bit stark, you know, light in there, but again, I'm not... You know, this one isn't, you know, going for the, you know, I'm not going for something like super resolved or something like that. This is just kind of the point of kind of showing a little bit of an exercise. You see that right there? It gives a little bit of variation to that. Okay, let's come in these trees. Now these trees should be plenty dry by now, so it'd be fine if I go over them. I'm not worried about it smearing, but Who knows if you have tons of, humidity and it's cold in your area or something like that, maybe, and you're going with a really super juicy, thick style of ink pad, maybe they are a little bit wet still. I don't know. It probably depends on the time of year, humidity, etc. Temperature. Okay, so adding this in like so. See that streak right in here? All right. It's a little bit rough, but what I'll do is I'll come back this way. Now, like I said, this doesn't have to be a technique or something like that, for a certain look. If I was doing a monochromatic like this, chances are I'd use like a Memento London Fog, which is a gray, thick ink, and I would put it down as a base so that these darker inks would slide easier. And I mean, you can do that for your exercise here, but I'd really recommend trying this right here, and just don't judge yourself, like from that first area up there. And you have to kind of go in there a lot longer, more than you think you'll need. But I mean, it doesn't take a long time. All right, this is one of the slower, processes because I don't want to get, something like this. And it's also because I had so much open area in here, to fill in. I didn't have anything up there in the sky, like a moon or a cloud or something like that that would kind of, start the foundation of a tone up there inherently. So I'm having to kind of add this completely in from scratch, okay? So I kind of leave these a little bit streakier. I do the same thing for the sky. Could be anything, It's just, you can use this exact same coloring scheme, lighting scheme, okay? It's coloring because you're kind of coloring in, or toning in this case, but it's also lighting because I'm retaining the light areas of given areas, okay? So the difference between coloring and lighting in this case is instead of just doing this all gray or something like that, you just retain some areas of light. So you're not only shading, but you are lighting in a sense. You're not actually adding light to it, but you're adding contrast, which reads as light in a given piece. Okay. I mean, this could be done right here. I mean, this looks, pretty decent right here. Now, see, it's easier for me to tone in down here because I have so many trees in here, so the more imagery you use, the little bit easier it is, because you get kind of a... It fills up faster because you already have imagery within that given space. Okay. Even for me, I haven't done this in a long time, so for me, I'm kind of getting the feel of it too. And it's getting easier and kind of more comfortable the more I go on here. Okay, now I said I was going to do some paper towel. I was kind of getting the swing of it with that. Okay, just use some... Okay, I'll use a clean paper towel. I wanted to use that. I'm frugal. Okay, so let's try this right here. Sometimes I find the paper towel might, I don't know, it might even be easier in some instances. I haven't really done it with this technique right here, just a monochrome. So taking that in like this. Okay, and going from the outside and using kind of a light touch. I'll show you what I'm doing right here. That works pretty good. See that real smooth kind of, right? Let's see how it works on here. I mean, I can't even see it up there because I've already kind of added it. Let's add a little bit more down here. I don't know, this works pretty good. You might try the paper towel or like a rag or something like that. This is very comfortable. Okay, I think I'm adding more than I thought I was, but it looks fine. Retain your light areas, okay? So this kind of exercise is to get you the feel of having a full kind of value range of darker to lighter, okay? At the end of the stroke, you're kind of going like that. You're not going like this and then up, leaving that right there, okay? That makes sense? Makes sense? If you liked finger painting as like a 5-year-old, you'll like this, maybe. But as adults, we've come to, we don't want all that stuff on our fingers. We want it clean or whatever. You kind of revert a little bit and try to really enjoy the kinesthetic nature of you know, this type of ink application, okay? All right, so anyway, remember that thing I was saying about the kind of the vignette right here? Okay. But I don't know, I mean, this is, can you see what I'm talking about right here? And I have achieved somewhat of pretty full value scale, right? Here's the thing. I have it going from dark, but the lighter areas are in here. Sometimes people, when they're working with their dark tones, they go dark, and it stops right here, and it's just solid dark. It doesn't have that transition from the outside to inside. See how it's dark to light? So I'm going from wet to dry, like this, okay? And it goes from dark to light, like that, okay? It's kind of like sweeping, you know, like a whisk broom or something like that. Not like a push broom. We're not pushing like ink in like this and then coming up, you know, like that. You're just kind of whisking it like that. And that's the natural movement of your hand too, okay? It goes like this. It doesn't go like this and then up, okay? All right, I'm getting the feel of it, okay? Who knows, maybe this would have went even faster than the stylus tool. The stylus tool is really great for areas like this, though. You know, right along the banks, you know, and getting that type of definition there, because I can use it kind of on an angle like this, and I just, you know, tone in like this, okay? This, I mean, it can work. It's a little, I don't know, a little bit more precarious, you know, because this area right here is just so kind of uneven, all right? When I'm doing this, though, it almost feels like I'm applying like if I rub this into like a stick of charcoal or something, and then I'm going on to a matte paper with it. That's kind of the feel or the spirit of it, maybe, you know? But anyways, look at that now. It's like, here we, you know, instead of doing, you know, color photography, now you're Ansel Adams doing, you know, black and white or something like that. Or just old-fashioned photography, right? I don't know. I love black and white movies. Maybe not because they're black and white, but I don't know. There is a certain spirit to them. And I love black and white photos too. I love color photos as well, but you know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You know, it's better than the other. But this certainly gives me a lot of control over lighting. You see that? I don't know. There's something kind of real sensual about, you know, black and white photography too, in terms of how it renders the forms. All right. But here you have it: light areas and dark areas. Okay. So it's basically dark on the perimeter, but it's a little bit darker in here where there's shadows. You know, I can see there's shadows, right, or reflections of those trees, so I just made those areas darker. And the image right here, let's see how much I can zoom in. All right, see what these dots are at the base of this little hill? I usually bottom weight it with more dots, and on the top it tapers off, and especially out here, see how that tapers off? So where there's no dots or less dots, you just don't tone that all in. But that looks better than, let's say, if that black was all over this area right here, okay? So that being said, I mean, you could work in reverse too. I mean, if I wanted to add some green or something like that to those little mounds, I could at this point in time. And it would just be kind of coloring it. I wouldn't really be doing too much lighting with those ones because I've already established it with the kind of this grayscale version of the black, okay? So it's just really fun stuff. All right, so let's see if we can do this same type of thing. Let's see if I can expedite it a little bit too. And let's just switch over, okay? This isn't going in some, you know, the Museum of Modern Art or something like that. So let's just use the back side of this, okay? And this is matte paper. It's not double-sided glossy or something like that. And let's just do the same composition. All right, now this might have a little bit of black on it or something like that. But let's just switch up here. Let's go with... I was going to go with the bottle green, but I thought this bottle green was all kind of disintegrating on me. Maybe not. It's just a super dark green, okay? And again, think of this as just kind of like an exercise, okay? Go with dark purple or dark blue, or some blues would give you a real wintry looking look to your composition. Okay. Now remember, this is matte paper, and it's matte uncoated, so, you know, when we're talking about kind of a smooth application of media, it could be potentially very precarious because it's going to be absorbing our ink faster than the matte side. So let's see what I can do here, okay? So it's a good exercise for me as well. I kind of got the feel of it going on the other side. You know, motion of it and the feel of it. I don't know, midway through or something like that, but let's just see what we can do here. I'm not terribly confident about some kind of fantastic, you know, finished piece or anything like that, but let's just see what I can do on the matte paper, okay? And even if it doesn't come out perfectly smooth or anything like that, chances are it's kind of refined your own technique so that when you go back to darker tones over kind of a slicker surface with, you know, that's been applied with more inks and colors, you know, your technique of applying that darker tone should, you know, we kind of create muscle memory with this type of thing. You know, it should have kind of create a stronger kind of confidence in your usage of those given colors, whatever it might be, just your darkest of tones. Okay, let's go on with a clean piece of paper right here. All right. I wonder if this is a new bottle green. I thought my other one was kind of disintegrated. These pens are like 20 years old, but I might have had a new one, just old but unopened. Okay, no, that is really dark, and it is super, super juicy, so I better watch out for that one, okay? Okay, let's go in here. Let's give it a try, okay? It's real textured because of the paper towel. I can see kind of like the little streaks in here. But again, we're just trying to achieve this kind of feeling of lighting. It's showing me those little stripes on there from the texture of the paper towel. Do you see those streaks in there? Those lines? They're kind of cool, though. I'm working a lot faster. Hey, this paper towel looks pretty good for this exercise. Okay, now see how I'm turning this in the direction that's the most conducive for the stroke? Don't be afraid to turn your card in a direction that's the most conducive for that mark that you're making on it, okay? It doesn't always have to be kind of, you don't always have to be looking at these trees right side up, because this is not as comfortable as this, okay? Alright, now one of the things that I'm noticing here is I'm getting a lot more coverage out of one ink end of this, you know, after that first dabbing. This is going a pretty long way. Here's my lighter areas in here. See that? Adding a little bit more. I'm not expecting it to become real smooth because this is for the first, you know, one thing. It's a textured dry piece of paper, right? Because it's the matte side, and it's not a glossy, it's not a matte cardstock over here. This is just an uncoated piece of paper, okay? All right, let me see if I can get this area in here. I'm kind of squeezing this off and making it a little bit more narrow. Okay. Okay, let me see if I can get a kind of some kind of water, you know, kind of these striations going across. You see that like that? So I like to break that area up a little bit, you know, with these kind of water streaks. And you can do it in the sky as well. Okay. All right, just for kicks, let's see if I can get it quite a bit darker on the perimeters right here. I think this looks pretty good, though, you know, just as is. But let's just keep going a little bit more to kind of make it a little more full, okay? And this lighting scheme here is the thing that you can do with any different type, media. You can be colored pencils or whatever. I usually have it where it's kind of lighter up here somewhere, separated by a little bit of shadow, like, even if it's something like that, right through here, and then more lighting down here. And then what that represents is kind of a light source and reflected light, so it creates this lighting dialogue within your scene. Okay, let me see if I can do that thing where I'm just kind of coloring in a little bit of the bottom side of this little hill here. Shoreline, okay. See how many times I'm just kind of going past here like that? And it's just getting a little bit darker each time, but look at the control you have over it. That's better than just going everywhere, okay? That's leaving kind of independent little streaks everywhere, okay? So my whole thing is just kind of staying with an area, applying in kind of sections, okay? Okay, going around the perimeter a little bit. Okay, let's go a little bit darker. I'm really tempted to finish this piece off with a little bit of white pigment ink in here now. Now that I've been playing around with those Moonlight Duo hybrids, I really like the things that extra textures that you can do, but that's not what this lesson is for right here. This lesson is to try and achieve these kind of value scales, okay? Just in a monochromatic, using one color. But look at the range of values that I have here, okay? This is using one color, but we have kind of light greens in here, right? Very faint greens, okay? We have medium tone greens, like right around in here, and we have it very dark, right? And that just has to do with the amount of saturation in here. And you can get it pretty smooth. I mean, it's showing the texture of the paper, for sure. That's where the pigment ink would kind of smooth that out a little bit. It would give it really good atmosphere. Maybe I'll finish this piece off in another video, but... Okay, so a couple different views of the lake. Glossy, black, and gray, grayscale. And, a greenish tinge, piece. And bottle green. Let me try something right here, okay? I don't know if this will work here, but let's just do this for kicks. Okay, taking this tree, inking it up. Yeah, pretty decently. Let's get a pretty good impression of that right there, okay? That really took off a lot of ink. Now let me see if I can get a lighter impression. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Well, let's just test it. Yeah, okay. See that right there? The foreground. It's like in back of the foreground. I don't know. That pad is so juicy. These are the other ones that I didn't blot it off, but let's do that again. Here. Blot it off, or make it a pretty decent impression with it, and then come in here like so. Look at that. Doesn't that give it a little bit of depth in here by having a lighter impression within that given space? And it's just using again that existing one value of grain. Okay, that being said, you can achieve kind of a full range of tones with this given color, but achieving different values of it, super light green version of this one. So you can really get a lot of mileage out of whatever pads you happen to be using, and that's what kind of my technique is all about. It's kind of about the, I don't know if it's the conservation, that's probably not the word of it, but I don't know, maybe the maximization of any one of our given pads out there, okay? We can take this, and if you don't have a 50% gray and a 20% gray and a 10% gray pad, you know, lighter tones, that black can be that 5% gray pad that you don't have just by adding in a very light dry touch of it, right? Here's the 50% gray or something like that. There's 70%. I don't know. I don't know if there's 100% down here, but it'd probably be in the corners or something like that if it was. All right, so any colors that you have, you can really maximize the, you know, the value range out of all of them. And that's where this kind of exercise comes into play, you know. It really gives you a mastery over all of your inks, no matter what types of inks they are, too. You know, I could be playing around with the, you know, the hybrid inks, or, you know, if you have something like, I don't know, all of the different brands out there that are out there, maybe the oxides or something like that, too. Utilize, you know, your varying degrees of saturation with them to achieve all those different looks. You know, this down here looks more like a pastel green, right? And that's just because it's very lightly applied and you get a lot of that white showing through. So anyways, master your dark colors and you'll really kind of have a better fix of mastering kind of your application techniques as well as your lighting. And I don't know, it can really bring a lot of value to your existing inks. A lot of people are just used to using these as the intensity and value that they represent. So they're used to using this dark green as that dark green right there, not as that 5% or whatever. And that's just simply using the very dry application of it, you know, where there's barely any of it on there and you're kind of doing more of a dry brushing technique, okay? Anyway, I hope you kind of experiment that with that a little. If you do, I don't know, send it over to me and let me take a look and whatnot, you know, and see as it is a process. I would recommend doing a couple of these, and I guarantee you by the end of the, you know, the second one, you'll get a little bit better feel for it. I did, and you know, I've been doing these periodically for years, but I don't do them too often. But you know, I don't know, I should. I really like this look here. Doesn't it look kind of, you know, real? I don't know, like those forms are really quite, I don't know, sensual or something like that. There's a really soft light kind of that's been developed in here. And again, it's just one tone of ink, okay? Or one value of ink, which was black, okay? In this case, that Marvy black is probably at least 95% black or gray, you know? It's really quite dark. Okay, so anyways, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was one that I really enjoyed teaching in class all those years, and having it be my, I don't know, first project, I think, in that second class. And like I said, a lot of people even liked the look of it better than some of the stuff they were doing with color. But what it did was I think it gave them a lot of more mastery out of the use of those colors, so when they went back with it, they were kind of approaching it with a new sophistication on usage. Okay, once again, thanks for tuning into the channel. Drop me a note with any questions. If you like this video, please press the like button, and I don't know, share and subscribe.